So I've been seeing a lot of stuff about AI. There's a lot of people online who are anti-AI. And this is what I try to do. I try to differentiate myself by questioning things that people just say. So a lot of people will just sit there and say, oh, AI is terrible, AI is bad. And I'll say, why is AI bad? Why is it so terrible? I'm going to say this right now. Every single argument I've heard against AI, not every, there's a few that are okay. There are a few that are decent. Most that I've heard, and the ones I've heard people say the most are so like nonsensical. And really what it comes down to when I hear people make like these different excuses, is really just that you're afraid of AI. You're afraid of AI because you feel like you're gonna get replaced. You're afraid of AI because AI exposes maybe things about you, maybe things about your work ethic, maybe things about your value that you don't want exposed. That's kind of the way I see it. So let me kind of just get into some, like off the top of my head. I was arguing with somebody the other day about AI, and the guy was like, oh, well, I don't like AI because it's bad for the environment. And I was like, well, what do you mean by it's bad for the environment? He's talking about, oh, well, AI does A, B, and C, and it's not good for the environment. And I was like, okay, cool. I will agree with you. It might not be good for the environment. I don't know for sure. I haven't done that much research into its impacts on the environment, but that could very well be true. Do you wear Nikes? Do you use an iPhone? Do you, like all the stuff you use, do you care about the impact it has to the environment? And the answer is no. So my thing is, if you're going to advocate against AI, because it's bad for the environment, you must also advocate against everything else that you use every single day that impacts the environment. And if you're unwilling to do so, then it seems clear that you do not care about the environment. You're just finding a reason to justify your hatred for AI, which is usually the case with most of these people. They don't really care about the environment. They're not the kind of person who's like trying to protest against things that hurt the environment. They're not the kind of person who's willing to sit there and try to learn how to impact the environment in a positive way while still getting the exact same results from the current technology that we use. They're not these types of people. They're the kind of person who just complains because they're like, oh, AI is going to replace us, but I don't want to say that out loud because that makes me sound like a bad guy, but I'll say that it impacts the environment because I'm trying to virtue signal. That's the reality of it. Art. I made a video earlier. I made one for YouTube and I made a short one for Instagram about art. I am trying to learn art. I would consider myself a very mediocre artist. With that being said, I still feel like I can, at least to some degree, put my 2 cents into the ring when it comes to AI and art. I have yet to see a negative to AI art. I'll be completely honest. I've seen a lot of artists say they hate AI art, and then I'll ask, why do you hate AI art? And the only thing I've really been hearing that's like consistent is it's theft. That's like, people either say it's theft or people say it's just not good. Okay, it's not good. Define good and bad in art. Like this is kind of like an argument as old as time. Good and bad in art. I have my like perspective on good and bad when it comes to art, but in the grand scheme of things, there's no such thing as good and bad when it comes to art. Art is art. Art is subjective. If you like it, then fair enough. It's good to you. If you don't like it, it's bad to you, but it's probably good to somebody else. Who cares? It's subjective. Now, do I think there's lazy art? Yes. We went to a museum in DC, me and Ida, my wife, not too long ago. I think like in June or July. And it was an art museum. We were kind of laughing at some of the art that was around. It would be just like some dude, it looked like some dude would just take paint, just throw it against like a canvas and call it art. And it's like, it's not really art. I wouldn't call it art. I wouldn't call it good art, at least. There were some drawings that were like questionable. It's like, I think if I had a 2-year-old son or daughter, I think they could do that. I think they could do better, to be honest. And it had me thinking like, what counts as like, at least for me on a personal level, good and bad art. Me personally, my definition would be good versus bad art is based on the amount of effort, or I guess based on how easily the art is to replicate. That'd be kind of like my view on it. So if the art can be made by anybody and everybody, it's probably not good art, in my personal opinion. And that probably has some like holes in it. There's probably some great art out there that people would consider like super spectacular. That could be replicated. Maybe. I can't think of any, but that's kind of like my view on it. Like when I think about Da Vinci, things that he painted or things that he created, or when you think about like Michelangelo sculpting things, these things are not easily replicated. Even if they're not super detailed or super intricate, the skill in itself required to even like conceptualize these things is hard. And that's to me what makes it good. When it comes to AI, I think AI just does what a human does exponentially faster. So people say, oh, well, AI art isn't good because it's not a human. Well, that's not really a good argument. I think saying that a human needs to make something there to qualify it as good or bad is, I don't know. I had to think deeply about that, but it's just kind of a weak argument to me. I've seen some people say, well, AI steals from other people. It's like, well, how does it steal? Well, because it takes things that already exist that other artists have created, and it takes like composites of those things to create its own new thing. So it references things, but all humans reference things. Like when you create art, you've referenced something. If you're someone like me who wants to create a comic, I reference things all the time. I'm sure even if I don't know it, I reference things because I've watched things before and those things were in my subconscious. And when I sit there and think about like a monster design, I'm sure I'm referencing, even if I don't know it, some monster I saw even when I was like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It's a reference. I didn't come up with these things. These things already existed. I saw them once, whether unintentionally or intentionally, and I'm drawing upon those things I've seen to create something brand new. So I don't know. I wouldn't, when it comes to even like in the artist community, I don't think it's a good, I have yet to see a good thing against AI. I've seen people say, well, AI makes you dumber. People are getting dumber with AI. I saw some study recently, and it was saying that a lot of people are stupid because of AI. To which I would say, people have always been stupid. AI exposes the stupid people. That's, I mean, what's the shock there? Oh, well, people are using AI like Google. That's making them stupid. That's making them not use their brain. People have been using Google when Google came out. What do you mean? Like, it's an easier way to use Google. Is it the best way to use AI? No. Is it efficient enough? Sure. Do stupid people exist? Absolutely. Have they always existed? Absolutely. Will they continue to exist? Absolutely. So what's the difference? Nothing. It just exposes more stupid people. That's perfectly fine. They've already existed. Still a weak argument for why you shouldn't be using AI. What's another argument that I've been hearing a lot when it comes to AI? The environment thing I already talked about, the art stuff I've been talking about, putting people out of work. I've been hearing that a lot too. It's going to put people out of work. I've been saying this for a while. And I'm going to say this to me has been true since always. If you're valuable, you're hard to replace. If you're not valuable, you're easy to replace. I think that's the gist of it. I've seen people complain about like the, what are they called? The self-checkout kiosks at like Walmart and like not restaurants, like grocery stores. They're like, oh, well, you're removing jobs from people. First of all, people shouldn't strive to never grow. If you're the kind of person that's working as a cashier, and I'm not like crapping on people who are cashiers. I used to work as a cashier myself. But it's like if you're going to work as a cashier in a grocery store and that's all you want to do with your life and you don't want to improve and you're unwilling to improve even when like things around you are pretty much screaming that you should improve, that's a personal problem. That is a you problem. And that's something that you have to figure out and deal with when it impacts you. I do not feel bad for the 20-something-year-old dude or 30-something-year-old dude or 40-something-year-old dude that works at Walmart who one day stopped getting shifts because this self-checkout kiosk did his job way better than he could. He didn't have to do that job forever. I'm not saying that people don't go through hard times. I'm not saying that people can't do those things temporarily, but you don't have to do it permanently. And I think that's the big distinction. You don't have to do it permanently. Temporary is fine. Permanent, you're choosing to do it then if it's permanent. So the same to me applies with like AI in general. If you're someone who works at McDonald's and the self-checkout machine that they now have like at a lot of McDonald's can take the order and take it faster than you can and get it correct more often than you could because you didn't care about your job that much, then sure, get replaced. I don't think that's that bad of a thing. And the reason in the grand scheme of things why I don't think it's that bad is because, as is the case with all society ever, when new things get introduced, new opportunities arise by default. So I think people are more concerned about getting replaced. I think people should be thinking more about what will come next as a result of this new technology. If you have, for example, I was telling a friend recently, I was talking to people about AI and I didn't know this was a job. Apparently there are people out there whose sole job is to just look at like images and sit there and identify the images for AI so that way when AI sees those images, it can recognize patterns and understand what something is. Like for example, you're using AI software and a banana pops up. Like you're a human trying to like train AI software and a banana pops up. You need to tell the AI that's a banana. You need to teach the AI what makes that banana distinct. Like how do you differentiate a banana from an orange or a banana from an apple or a banana from a pear? Does that make sense? How do you differentiate a banana from a tire? You need to teach AI these things. And that's a job that some people have. Was it a job that existed before AI? No, because AI didn't exist. Is it a job that exists because of the AI? Yes, because AI exists. So it's like social media. There are people who are social media content managers. That thing didn't exist like 10 plus years ago because there was no such thing as social media. There are people these days who are streamers who make millions of dollars streaming. It did not exist before YouTube or before Twitch, which are all relatively new things. There are some people back in the day that were like assembly line workers at like Mitsubishi or like Toyota. They probably don't exist as much as they do today because there's other technology that replaced them. But with the new technology, there's new job positions that open up to use those technologies, to keep those technologies efficient. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I think a lot of these arguments against AI come from people just taking what other people are saying and not thinking about it themselves. Like they heard an argument, and instead of just questioning the argument and challenging the argument, they're just like, sounds good enough. I'll accept that as fact. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. It's just very like low quality thinking to me. I hate that type of thinking where people just hear something that other people have said who've also thought very little to nothing about that thing, and they accept it as fact. One more thing that just kind of came to mind as I was talking. I heard that in schools, like ChatGPT and like all these AIs were taking over and were making students cheat. My thoughts on this: students have always been cheating. Students will always cheat. Humans are very clever. When humans want to find out a solution to something, you'd be surprised at how easily some humans can find out solutions to things that should be complicated. I've seen when I was in school, I saw some very creative ways to cheat. With AI, people will find clever ways to cheat. When you try to ban AI, people will find clever ways to cheat. People will just find ways to cheat because there's an incentive to learn how to cheat. AI is not causing these things. AI just exposes some things. Now, they're saying people are stupid because they're not taking tests and they're not writing essays. I'm going to be brutally honest. All that stuff was bullshit from the beginning. We all knew when we were students how stupid a lot of these homework assignments were. And I'm not saying homework as a concept is stupid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there were plenty of times where you had a teacher who would just give you homework that felt like busy work, and it didn't feel like it was actually reinforcing the things you learned in class, or you were learning things in class that felt irrelevant to real life. I'm saying this brutal, like being brutally honest. If you're watching this video right now, when you were a kid, how many times were you in class and a teacher was teaching you something and you were sitting there thinking to yourself, when will we ever learn this? This stuff does not feel important. Why are we wasting our time in school learning this? I still believe it's true to this day. I think there's so much stuff in school that it's pointless. It's stupid. You should not know it. It doesn't matter. It's like when you hit that math teacher who was trying, I remember this actually, this happened to me in high school. We were taking this like advanced like algebra class, or it was like geometry something, like pre-calculus geometry something and trigonometry. And I remember this one kid was just like, the teacher was like just droning on about this math stuff. And this kid raised his hand and he's like, I have a question. And the teacher's like, oh, what's your question? He's like, when will we ever use this in like real life? And I remember the teacher's response because it was such a stupid response. Even as a kid, as a high school kid, I realized how dumb this response was. The teacher replied, if you become a math teacher, this will become very relevant to you. So you're telling me the only way I'll need to learn this math stuff is if I want to teach this math stuff. What if I don't want to teach it? Are you saying it's not relevant? Clearly you are. So then you answer my question. I don't need to learn this then. It was such a mind-blowing answer to that kind of question. Like you would think the teacher would be like, oh, well, you know, math is great for reinforcing like your ability to logic and reason. And the ability to logic and reason is actually great in society because sometimes in the real world you face problems that don't have like obvious answers, and the ability to logic and use reasoning will help you overcome these like problems you have in your life. That'd be a good answer. That's not the answer he gave. He just said, if you want to be a math teacher, you need to learn math. Like, well, no shit. Like, obviously. So, like, it's a little silly, but my point is that the education system's been broken anyway. So for students to use ChatGPT, it's the equivalent of us when we were in school using Cliff Notes and Spark Notes to read a book. It's the same thing. Instead of the student sitting there and being like, oh, I need to like bullshit my way through this essay because the teacher told me I need to write a 5,000 word essay on a relatively simple idea that I could easily answer in 100 words. So I need to stretch out this paper and write as many like stupid articles and like use like words like pretty much synonyms that just like say a very simple idea in more words to make it sound overly complicated. Instead of me doing that, how about I just use AI to do all the work for me? So I don't have to think about it that much. And it sounds probably much better anyway. Oh, but the students aren't using their brains. We didn't use our brains back then anyway when we were using Cliff Notes. We didn't use our brains back then when we were, I remember in college, there was a service, and I used the service. because the idea of me sitting in class to me was stupid. So I literally just wouldn't go to class towards my senior year. And there was this thing off campus where you can go and you could like just buy like cheat sheets. Like there are students who would just take like really good notes and they would sell their notes to this company, and the company would like sell the notes to the students. And so I would go to like this, I'd be like, oh, I'm not gonna go to class this day. And the teachers were sometimes so lazy, they would just use the same like syllabus every single year. They would never change it because again, the education system's so like broken that even when information gets updated, even when things that we thought were once true get corrected, the education system's so slow to like adapt that they don't change anything. So you end up learning like outdated information. It's just how it is. So I would just go to like this company and be like, hey, can I buy like the notes for like criminology 403, this teacher? And they'd be like, here you go. And then you just study the notes. You basically just memorize the information because that's all classes are in like high school and college. A lot of it's just memorization. Not for every subject, of course. There's some subjects where you have to actually understand concepts. But for a lot of subjects, it's just memorization. Just memorize it, take the test. You never went to class. You ace it. And that's it. If anything, I'm smarter for doing that because it's more efficient. I took 20 minutes to just memorize the material for the test. Whereas the other people went to class, they walked to class, they took 50 minutes to sit in class or an hour to sit in class. They have to walk back to their dorm or walk back home or walk to their next class. I'm chilling. I didn't go to class at all, and I still got a better grade than all you guys. So my point is that when people bring up these like problems with AI, they're not real problems so far that I've seen. Most of the problems people identify are not real problems. They're things that have already existed, and they're problems that have already been a big problem. But AI just exposes how big those problems are. AI exposes how detrimental these things are. AI exposes how shitty the education system has been anyway. AI exposes that we have a lot of jobs that are bullshit jobs that people probably shouldn't be working, but we feel like they need to be a real thing, which doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit the person because it doesn't force them to grow. It doesn't benefit the company because the company's paying more money to people that they don't really need to be paying money to because these people aren't really helping the company that much. It's just not good for anybody. So that was my rant. That was my 2 cents. Curious to know, if you're watching this, what you think about it. Do you have any real arguments against AI? Like legitimate arguments, not stuff you've heard from other people, stuff you've thought about yourself, stuff you've sat down for like at least 5 minutes at a time and just questioned and debated yourself on this. Like you have to actually come up with the pros and the cons. If you have any good reasons why AI isn't great, let me know. I'm curious to hear. And until next time, I'll see you. Peace out. Bye.